Dr. Ben Malayang III, the former president of Silliman University and a long associate of Dr. Alcala, will say some words.
Dr. 𝗡𝗥𝗢𝗟𝗢𝗚, a person of science and a person of faith, whose brilliance and humility sees no contradiction in the two, who uses science to appreciate the wonders of God's world, and whose faith makes him see that keeping the world beautiful and intact is the best form of worship. Dr. 𝗡𝗥𝗢𝗟𝗢𝗚, a friend of many, a mentor to many, many more, and an inspiration to many, many, many more.
May I request those who are able to please stand as we honor the reading of God's Word. The first reading is taken from the book of Psalm, chapter 121. I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where will my help come? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. He who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time on forevermore. The second reading is taken from the second letter of Paul to the Corinthians, chapter 12, verses 5 to 10. On behalf of such a one, I will boast, but on my own behalf, I will not boast, except of my weaknesses. But if I wish to boast, I will not be a fool, for I will be speaking the truth. But I refrain from it, so that no one may think better of me than what is seen in me or heard from me, even considering the exceptional character of the revelations. Therefore, to keep me from being too elated, a thorn was given to me in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me, to keep me from being too elated. 3 times I appealed to the Lord about this, that it would leave me. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for power is made perfect in weakness. So I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may dwell in me. Therefore I am content with weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities for the sake of Christ. For whenever I am weak, then I am strong. Here ends the reading of God's Word. Thanks be to God. You may now be seated.
Lift my eyes unto the hills.
Today, we come together to join the Alcala family as we take the body of Dr. Angel Choa Alcala to its final resting place. At the same time, we come to remember his life and give thanks to God for how he has touched the lives not only of the members of the family, but also of the Silliman community, the Silliman Church, our country, and the world. Losing a loved one, especially one who has done a lot to make our world a better place, is one of the most devastating experiences a person can have. We try to prepare ourselves for it as one gets older, but when it comes, we really are not prepared. Questions come to our minds, and we don't have answers to them. At such a time, we need something to hold on to, or we need someone whom we can look up to for help. I was talking to one of the members of the church I served a while ago, and he said to me how good it is that at a time when we lose someone we love, we have the grace of God to rely on. How true. How else can we deal with the sadness that is brought about by parting with someone who means so much to us and to the community? We just heard Psalm 121 read and sang by the choir. Long ago, the psalmist who wrote Psalm 121 was certainly one who recognized his need to help in facing the challenges of life. It is evident that, like us, the psalmist went through a challenging time in his life, and he knew he did not have the resources within himself to make his life work on his own. The psalmist was undoubtedly an individual who was a strong person, which is all the more reason that this psalm has incredible meaning for you and for me. Here is an example of a strong person who recognized something beyond himself or someone bigger than himself. And as the psalmist said, I will lift up my eyes to the hills, from whence does my help come? And then he answered, my help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. Now, we need to remember that death is always difficult, especially the death of one who is very dear to us. We think of all the things we've talked about, all the good things we did together, or the plans we had, and of course, we grieve. For Silliman community, we share stories about the time when he was teaching, the time when he did some research, and the things he accomplished as a scientist. And for many, he was a model that we need to emulate. For the Alcala family, you may remember the things he did as a father, a husband, a brother, or an uncle or grandfather. And for the Silliman Church, how he was active as a church officer, helping making decisions as a good steward of God's creation. And of course, his special relationship with God. I usually see him with Mrs. Alcala over there in that corner, sitting, praying together, worshiping together. And for some, as we remember the life of Dr. Alcala and thank God for giving us the opportunity of working with him, this also reminds us of the time when we lost a member of our family or a good friend, and we still feel a deep sense of loss. However, for us Christians, we grieve in the arms of a loving God, the God who assures us that even if we go to the depths of hell, our God will be there with us. And when we put our faith in a God whose love is steadfast, we can say, as does the psalmist, my help comes from the Lord. And so I know God will keep my going out and coming in from this time forth and forevermore. Thus today, we give thanks for the wonderful gift that God has given us in Dr. Angel Alcala. His life among us, his love, his wisdom, and talents that he shared with us. It is just right and proper to express our thanks over and over again to God for this unique person with whom we have had the privilege of knowing and sharing a part of our lives. According to Alex Pal, who had been listening to all the tributes about Dr. Alcala, many words have been said, but they just cannot approximate the life of Dr. Angel Alcala. And thus we give thanks to God. Well, what we can do is give thanks and rejoice because the one who made us, who weaved us together in the depths of the earth, fashioning us day by day, when we were not, will, after we die and return to the earth, keep working in us, keep fashioning us. The passage from the New Testament that we just read was written by St. Paul to the Christians in Corinth. As he went around preaching and sharing the gospel with others, he too had his share of suffering and sadness. He talked about his thorn in the flesh which bothered him. He prayed about this thorn in flesh, and he prayed and imploring God to take it away. But the answer of the Lord answered him with words that have given hope and courage to countless Christians who have questioned and struggled with life dilemmas. The Lord assured him, "My grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness." Grace is God's answer to many of our questions, and it is the only answer I know of at this time of grief. How good it is that at a time when we have to walk through the valleys of deep shadows, we have the grace of God to rely on. God's Spirit intercedes for us as with sighs that are too deep for words. The one whom we think is up there is also down here with us, guiding and being with us today. James Moore tells of a boy named Paul who lived in a small town. He was just a little boy when his family became the proud owners of one of the first telephones in the neighborhood. It was one of those wooden boxes attached to the wall with a shiny receiver hanging on the side of the box and the mouthpiece attached to the front. Young Paul listened with fascination as his father and mother used the phone, and he discovered that somewhere inside the wonderful device called a telephone lived an amazing person. Her name was Information Please. And there was nothing she did not know. Information Please would supply anybody's number on the correct time. Paul's first personal experience with Information Please came one day when he hurt himself. The pain was terrible and he did not know what to do. And then he thought of the telephone. Quickly, he pulled a footstool up to the phone, climbed up and hooked the receiver and said, "Information, please." Then a small, clear voice spoke, "Information." "I hurt my finger," Paul wailed into the phone. "Nobody's home but me." Paul cried, "Can you open your ice box?" "Yes." "Then go get some ice and hold it to your finger." Paul did, and it helped a lot. After that, Paul called Information Please for everything. She helped him with his geography, his math. She taught him how to spell the word fix. And then when Paul's pet canary died, she listened to his grief tenderly and then said, "Paul, always remember that there are other worlds to sing in." Somehow it helped and Paul felt better. Then Paul moved to another place with the family. Some years later, Paul was on his way west to the college, and his plane landed near where he grew up. He dialed his hometown operator and said, "Information, please." Miraculously, he heard that same small, clear voice that he knew so well. Paul did not plan this, but suddenly he blurted out, "Could you please tell me how to spell the word fix?" There was a long pause. Then came the soft answer, "I guess your finger must be all healed by now." Paul laughed. "Do you have any idea how much you meant to me during the time when I was a little boy?" She said, "I never had children and I used to look forward to your calls." Paul asked her if he could call her again. And when he was back in the area, "Please do," she said. "Just ask for Sally." 3 months later, Paul was back in Seattle. This time a different voice answered. He asked for Sally. "Are you a friend?" the operator asked. "Yes, a very old friend," Paul answered. "Well, I'm sorry to have to tell you this," she said. "Sally died 5 weeks ago." Before he could hang up, the operator said, "Wait a minute. Did you say your name was Paul?" "Yes, well, Sally left a message for you. She wrote it down in case you called. And let me read it to you. It says, 'When Paul calls, tell him that I still say there are other worlds to sing in.'" You will know what I mean. There are other worlds to sing in. Isn't that a beautiful and powerful thought? There are other worlds to sing in this life, and yes, even beyond this life. And most likely, Dr. Angel Alcala, together with the other angels, with the other angels, will have other worlds to do their research and share their gifts. The Lord will keep our going out and coming in from this time forth and forevermore. Thanks be to God. Let us pray. Creator God, we are taken aback, stunned when death occurs among our family members and close friends. Our minds say they understand, but our hearts refuse to accept it and take us on a roller coaster ride of disbelief, sorrow, and loneliness. Our world changes dramatically and quickly, but we change more slowly. In between, we shed countless tears and endure an inner pain that no palliative can reach. Vulnerable and at the mercy of destruction we cannot escape or defeat, we come to you this day. Steady us, strengthen us, and bring us once more into days of peace. Compelled by circumstances that cause us to reach out to you, may we gain a heart of wisdom and develop a compassion that we, in turn, may understand the broken hearts of others. You who came to us through your Son, who died a death that was grossly unfair and cruel, promises to each of us a new life that will not end in death, but will transport us into a world we can only dream about. There we shall be with you, experiencing the fullness of joy. In the name of the Christ we pray. Amen.
Good morning, everyone. I am academician Alvin B. Kulaba and Chair, Engineering Sciences and Technology Division, a friend and colleague of National Scientist Angel Alcala with the National Academy of Science and Technology. Today, we come together in deep admiration of national scientist Angel 𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗥𝗢𝗟, a hero of science. His love for his countrymen are reflected in his works for a sustainable environment and the protection of marine biodiversity, securing adequate fisheries for the generations to come. We shall commemorate his noble character and distinct works through the memories and experiences we have shared with him. At this point, please rise for the singing of the Philippine National Anthem to be led by the Silliman University Band. You may take your seat. I would like now to call on academician Euphemio T. Rasco Jr., President of the National Academy of Science and Technology, to give his message.
Maraming salamat, Academician Alvin Colaba. Warm greetings to everyone. Allow me to acknowledge the presence of President 𝗏𝒃𝗥𝗢𝗟𝗓, President of Silliman University, National Scientist Lourdes Cruz, one of only 9 surviving national scientists today, my colleagues in the Academy who are present here virtually, as well as those who are present here physically, Dr. Gary Russ, Professor, James Cook University, and Undersecretary Maridon Sahagon, who is representing Secretary Renato Solidom of the Department of Science and Technology. Allow me to thank the family of National Scientist Angel Alcala, headed by his wife, Nomi, for giving us the opportunity to honor him today as one of our esteemed members. As the last interim president, I'm conveying the sentiment of the Academy. The Academy today has only 77 members. 10 are national scientists. There are only 42 national scientists who ever lived. With the loss of National Scientist Alcala, the living national scientist is reduced to 9. Indeed, we are losing a rare national treasure. This explains the state ceremony that we are having today. We join the entire nation in mourning for the loss of national scientist Alcala, and we offer our most sincere condolences to the Alcala family. If it is any consolation, the genes of national Alcala will live on, carried into the future by his 6 children, 17 grandchildren, and 11 grandchildren. National scientist Alcala is known differently by different people because he has touched so many lives in his extraordinary productive career as an educator, a national government executive, and a tireless scientist. Coming from a different field of science, my interaction with national scientist Alcala has been limited to our activities. He was elected into the Academy in 2004 and later was conferred by the President of the Philippines the Order of National Scientist in 2013. I had the pleasure of speaking at the same events as him, particularly in those that were designed to inspire young people to take the science career. I now know enough of him to recognize that he is a very good argument why this country needs national scientists. He is a good role model and an inspiration to all Filipinos. To honor his memory, allow me to recall salient points among his many achievements, if only to serve as a reminder to all of us that his work is not complete. We can best honor him if we commit ourselves to continuing his work and following his examples. To make it easy for us to remember, I'm limiting the list to only 3. On top of my list is his campaign to establish an extensive network of marine protected areas in the country. National scientist Alcala established the first working no-take marine reserve in the country in Sumilon Marine Reserve, the Apo Marine Reserve of Southern Negros in 1982, and a dozen similar reserves in southern Philippines. Apo Marine Reserve is a template of community-based marine resource conservation in the world and is showcased at the famous Shedd Aquarium in Chicago, USA. To honor the memory of national scientist Alcala, we must continue to promote the establishment of community-based no-take marine reserves in other parts of the country. Second among his 3 achievements in my list is his work as an educator. Well, this is a tough assignment for us to continue because he is an educator with so much to share. He started out teaching and continued up to his last breath, influencing generations of scientists and top leadership of educational institutions. We can honor his memory by working to include conservation biology in the marine environment, which is his passion. This is also consistent with the Academy's vision for an archipelagic and maritime nation. Third and last, but most important in my list, is his work as a researcher. He started out in the basic sciences Among his early works was the biology and ecology of amphibians and sea urchins. But he did not stop just doing basic research. He evolved into applied sciences, laying the knowledge foundations for establishing marine protected areas. He then became an active advocate of MPAs. His life story is a good example of how a scientist can become a credible advocate, policy, and an effective change maker, a role that is so badly needed today, but very few scientists dare to fill. To recapitulate, let us honor the memory of National Scientist Alcala by continuing his exemplary work as a pioneer of no-take marine reserves, a focused educator, and a multi-dimensional researcher. Lastly, let me thank the Lord, the family of National Scientist Alcala, and the Silliman University community for the priceless gift that you gave to the Filipino nation. Let me thank National Scientist Alcala for giving the Academy a good argument for being. Let me thank the people of Dumaguete for giving National Scientist Alcala, the proper environment to grow, bloom, and fruit. National Scientist Alcala, we are deeply saddened by your departure. The Academy will honor your memory by exhorting our members and the rest of the scientific community to continue the work that you started and following your footsteps. May you rest in peace.
Thank you very much, Academician Rasco. National Scientist Alcala was compassionate and worked diligently not for himself, but for the people and the society. Let us find comfort knowing that his kindness and works have touched and transformed the lives of many, not just for the Filipinos, but also people around the world that have adopted and learned from his works. Before we proceed, we shall have a few moments of peaceful reflection of our memories of National Scientist Alcala. And as we do so, I would like to call on Ms. Cherry Lynn Antonio and Mr. Rigel Suarez for a duet rendition.
Il Signore mi rendi uno strumento della vostra pace.
Lord, make me an instrument of your peace.
𝗔𝒡𝒐𝒐 lasciarlo seminare l'amore.
Where there is hatred, let me sow love.
Dove ti Jeperina,
where there is injury,
perdono,
pardon,
dubio,
where there is doubt,
fede, 𝑑𝒉.𝑫
faith,
desperazione,
where there's despair,
sperare, 𝑑𝒉.𝑫 aleggrezza,
there is darkness,
illuminarsi, 𝑑𝒉.𝑫 tristezza,
where there is darkness,
gioia, oh, divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console,
to be understood as to understand,
to be loved as to love.
as to love, for it is in giving
That we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned. It is in dying that we are born again.
it is in dying that we are born again.
It is in dying that we are born again to eternal life.
Mi rende uno strumento della vostra pace. Lord,
Il Signore
make me an instrument of your peace.
I know that most of us have shared memorable experiences with national scientist Alcala. I am very sure that all of us would want to impart those interesting stories and thoughts about him. At this juncture, may we now hear the message from Dr. 𝗡𝗘𝗥𝗢𝗟𝗓, President of the Silliman University.
Good morning, everyone. Losing a family member, a friend, and a mentor will always leave a hollow feeling in one's heart. This is what the Silliman University community feels at the moment. When we made the official announcement of the passing of national scientist Dr. 𝗡𝗘𝗥𝗢𝗟𝗓𝗓, a pioneer of marine biodiversity and marine conservation in the Philippines, and a pillar of the university, the campus was wrapped in sadness. And the lowering of the flag at half-mast was the full confirmation of the mourning. Yes, Silliman University mourns the loss of a scientist, administrator, trustee, professor, a morally upright family man, and public servant. To the country and to the world, Dr. Alcala was an acclaimed biologist and conservationist, He was known for his pioneering work in establishing marine protected areas in the Philippines, which protects marine ecosystems and promotes sustainable fishing. The concept of community-based coastal resource management in the promotion of marine biodiversity, the use of artificial reefs as models for fisheries development in the Philippines, and his extensive research on Philippine amphibians and reptiles since the mid-1950s, which led to the discovery of 50 additional species out of the 400 known species in the country. He was recognized nationally and internationally for his extensive research and conservation work, including being named as National Scientist in 2014, for his contributions to Philippine biological sciences, being awarded the Ramon Magsaysay Award for Public Service in 1992, being named an ASEAN Biodiversity Hero in 2017, being among the 11 notable Filipino alumni inducted into the first ever Fulbright Philippines Hall of Fame, and the Pew Fellowship in Marine Conservation. Dr. Alcala was also a public servant, serving as the Department of Environment and Natural Resources Secretary from 1992 to 1995, and the Commission on Higher Education as chairperson from 1995 to 1999. But behind all the titles and recognitions, Dr. Alcala was a man of competence, character, and faith, hallmarks of a Silliman education that he has carried with him through the decades of his career. For the Silliman University community, whom he has served in many capacities since he graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Biology degree, magna cum laude, in 1951, Dr. Alcala has always been one of the most renowned role models of what a Sillimanian is and must strive to be. After graduating from Silliman in 1951, he completed his Master of Arts and Doctor of Philosophy in Biological Sciences at Stanford University in California in 1960 and 1966, respectively. Dr. Alcala then returned to Silliman University as a professor, where he became the College of Arts and Sciences Dean, the Marine Laboratory Director, and eventually the 9th Silliman University President, serving from 1991 to 1992. He was named an Outstanding Sillimanian Awardee in Biological Sciences in 1988. Aside from his leadership as an educator, among his most notable contributions to Silliman University is the establishment of the Institute of Environmental and Marine Sciences in 1974, with Professor Rodolfo Gonzalez and other biology department faculty. In his last years, Silliman was blessed with his continued presence. He remained active in Silliman University as a professor emeritus, board of trustees member, and Chair of the Board of Advisors of the Silliman University Angelo King Center for Research and Environmental Management. Dr. Alcala's work and service for and with Silliman University has greatly contributed to Silliman University being the Christian higher educational institution it is today. Without Dr. Angel C. Alcala, Silliman University would not have been able to make the same impact. For these, Silliman University will forever be grateful. To the immediate family, headed by Mrs. Noemi Alcala, the children, Estrilda, Angelo, Grace, Moses, Emily, and Ellie, and their better halves, and to the grandchildren and great-grandchildren, we mourn with you in the passing of a great man. To you, sir, go in peace and see you in the resurrection morning.
Thank you very much, Dr. Makan. We'll now hear from one of the living national scientists, Lourdes J. Cruz, who is a colleague of National Scientist Alcala at the National Academy.
Let me express my deepest condolences to Mrs. Alcala and the rest of his family and friends, who I admire. National Scientist Angel Alcala as an excellent field biologist, ecologist, and conservationist, as an exemplar of ethics and professionalism. I first met him in 1982 at the International Congress on Toxinology held in the University of Queensland in Brisbane, Australia. We were both invited to present our work. And he reported on his work on poisonous crabs that he did with Professor Yasumoto of the University of Tokyo. They found that the crabs contain the paralytic shellfish poisons and the toxins found in puffer fish. So double whammy. I talked about our initial studies with academician Toto Oliveira on cone snails, and right away, Dr. Alcala offered to help us with getting other conus specimens. When he was president of Silliman University, he invited Toto Oliveira and myself to visit his lab in Silliman, where he showed us the different species he was working on, including Aplysia. He also brought us to his protected area project at Sumilon Island, marvelous coral reefs. Very generous in sharing his knowledge, he enjoyed trips to different parts of the Philippines to lecture to high school students. After the talks, students surround him for pictures and autographs. He was and still is the favorite national scientist among the youth. We were together in several trips for the Science Teach and Meet Your Scientist events. Up to several years ago, before the pandemic, we were both in several events, including the one in Ilocos Sur and in Antique. The long ride, I remember the long ride from Iloilo City back and forth to Antique, which tired us out, including academician Azanza and his daughter Emily, because of the rugged and long ride, but we didn't hear him complain. Lastly, I admire him for agreeing to be the secretary of DNR, despite DNR's reputation. It was like, I think it was like being thrown into the lion's den. But I suppose his concern for the sustainability of the Philippine environment was a bigger concern, and he served the agency in all honesty. His death is certainly a very big loss to science, especially the Philippine scientific community. And my condolences again to the family of the national scientist Ángel Alcala.
Thank you, National Scientist Lourdes Cruz. As we continue our program, we'll be hearing two messages from colleagues of National Scientist Alcala with the National Academy of Science and Technology. I may now call on the chair, the former president of the NAST Philippines, academician Rodora V. Azanza, to share with us how National Scientist Alcala has touched her life and career as a scientist and as a professional. She will be followed by a message by academician Jaime C. Montoya, Secretary of NAST Philippines and Executive Director of DOST's Philippine Council for Health, Research, and Development.
Greetings to everyone in this celebration of the life of our beloved national scientist, Ángel Alcala. My deepest condolences to the bereaved family of National Scientist Alcala. To us marine scientists, Dr. Ángel Alcala will always be an icon. He was the most productive researcher and author of scientific papers on organisms and communities on land and in the sea, and on the ways and systems that biodiversity can be protected and nurtured. He was able to hone and influence numerous, if not all, of the marine science students and practitioners, and marine environment advocates and enthusiasts in the Philippines and the rest of the world. I am inclined to believe that even young Filipino learners or elementary and high school students know National Scientist Alcala. With fondness, allow me to recall that one day, my young grandson, Lance Mateo, went home and eagerly asked me, and I quote, "Lola, Lola, do you know Angel Alcala?" And I said, "Yes, of course." And I asked him, "Why? How come you know him?" He said, "He is featured in our science textbook." And I was very glad to hear that. I remember when we were reviewing the K-12 curriculum, including the textbooks, I requested the Department of Education, and I see Secretary Briones around. Good morning, ma'am. I requested the DepEd representatives to exert effort on featuring Filipino scientists in our science textbooks. National Scientist Alcala, to me, was not only a mentor and later on a senior colleague. He was a visiting professor at the University of the Philippines Marine Science Institute. And my room was adjacent to his room. And every time we see each other, we talk about so many things, not only academic topics, but also other things that would interest him. Foremost, however, he remains a paragon for his dedication to marine science, public service, and love of country. I would not mention the litany of occasions and engagements that I worked for him and with him for more than 2 decades in the field of marine science and protection of marine biodiversity. Without any doubt, he was a knowledgeable, innovative, and visionary science leader. When he was the head of the Biological Science Division of the Academy, he had my utmost cooperation. And he returned the same when he and my colleagues chose me to take over the chairmanship after his term. The last time we were working together, as mentioned by national scientist Luli Cruz, was in a Philippine Science Heritage Know Your Scientist pre-pandemic event in Antique. He was shown the fond admiration and appreciation by the science teachers and students, which I think made up for the arduous travel from Iloilo to Antique that he and all of us had to take to meet with them. The last time we were communicating, it was via email in November 2022. He had the iconic habit of seeing to it that his messages are delivered clear and on time. For all the knowledge, the learnings, and values that I have gained from National Scientist Alcala and the academic life shared with this humble giant in whose shoulders we marine scientists stand, I have been honored and truly grateful. National Scientist Alcala, on behalf of the Filipino marine scientists, we pray for your eternal repose. Your legacy will always be with us. Maraming salamat po.
Before we hear the message of Academician Montoya, we now have a song from the Silliman University Church Covenant Choir.
Thank you.
To the Alcala family, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I would like to extend my sincerest condolences to the family, loved ones, friends, and colleagues of National Scientist Ángel Alcala. As his fellow member of the National Academy of Science and Technology, Philippines, I share the same sentiment of grief that we have lost a great and noble scientist our nation is proud to have. Through this gathering, we take this opportunity to honor and celebrate the legacy of National Scientist Alcala. Academician Alcala demonstrated extraordinary achievements and excellent contributions to the fields of the biological sciences. He has done extensive research and projects on tropical and marine biodiversity in the Philippines. These research efforts brought about projects to improve the protection on fish, abundance, species richness, and marine biodiversity, understanding the effects of climate change on fish species, coral reefs, mangroves, and how protection can decrease their vulnerability to environmental threats, such as ocean warming and ocean acidity, and coordination with local communities' response to environmental management and conservation issues. Such efforts and achievements resonate in the academic and scientific fora, and even among the local communities he was able to help. His works on raising people's awareness of the advantage of protecting fish species and marine life led to local fishing communities' participation in better fishing practices, marine conservation and protection that benefited them better yield and tourism livelihood opportunities. Citing his humble beginnings as a son of a fisherman from the province of Negros, his efforts related to the fisherfolk and coastal communities in recognizing the value of marine life in the lives of people, advocating protection, guarantee adequate fisheries production for the next Filipino generations to come. Indeed, National Scientist Alcala is an honorable scientist with prolific academic expertise, going beyond research to actions and projects that benefit the Philippine environment and society. As such, his efforts and contributions were recognized by various award-giving bodies. On a personal note, I have known National Scientist Ángel Alcala even prior to his becoming an academician and eventually national scientist. You may be wondering how a health scientist like me crossed paths with an eminent marine biologist. We were together in the board of the Philippine Institute of Traditional and Alternative Healthcare since I joined the board as an ex officio member as head of the PCHRD. Of course, I already knew him as former secretary of DENR, but never had the chance to meet him up close. He was very unassuming for his stature, only made a few statements from time to time, but always with his characteristic forceful and emphatic tone. When debates during the meeting took time, he would immediately intervene, and every one of us will agree. I truly enjoyed talking with him about reptiles and the environment, and I have to admit, maybe, just maybe, he probably knew even more about health than me, because he was talking about issues which I didn't even thought of in the first place. During the days of Lolong, we usually kid and laugh about it, especially when I told him that according to the news, the bigger crocodile, the female, is still at large. Then he would say and tell me, parang tao lang yan. Usually ang commander, ang misis ang susunod. I will certainly miss his simple ways when he would listen while people who like me talk a lot, maybe on certain occasions, but when he speaks even a few words, they were truly meaningful. We may be in different fields, but his greatness shows through his actions. A humble and amiable person, I would always cherish his words of wisdom and advice through the committees that we have worked together. I looked up to him, of course, as a mentor, a teacher, and of course, a friend. It is indeed a big loss to the scientific community, and it is my distinct privilege to deliver this eulogy and remember his various achievements and contributions as national scientist to our nation. As we look up to him as an accomplished and noble scientist, we shall always remember him as an inspiring, pleasant, and humble friend, and a person truly worthy of our utmost and highest respect and admiration. Let us all remember him. And sir, in fact, I'm very happy to be here with you. It was indeed an honor to have met you and known you. And I hope that we will soon meet. Not that soon, but maybe in the same place where you're now enjoying the Lord's presence.
Thank you. Thank you for your messages, Academician Adzandza and Academician Montoya. We will now hear another song from the Silliman University Church Covenant Choir. national scientist Alcala has shared his knowledge willingly to younger generation to continue his legacy. May we hear from academician Arvin C. Jesmos how national scientist Alcala has motivated him as a young herpetologist. A message will be followed by Dr. Gary R. Russ of James Cook University, who is a colleague of national scientist Alcala at the Coral Reef Conservation, which will be delivered by Dr. Rene Abesamis of UP Marine Science Institute, and will be followed immediately by a song of the SU Covenant Choir.
the Alcala family, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. We're here to celebrate an extraordinary man who was bigger than life and is a man of science. I speak as a student, a mentee, and a colleague later on of national scientist Alcala, and I should say also as an extended family. I'm also here on behalf of the many friends, colleagues, co-scientists, academicians, academics, and students, past and present, from the NAST, from the National Research Council of the Philippines, from the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, which he was our ASEAN Biodiversity hero, from the Biodiversity Conservation Society of the Philippines, which he helped start, from the 𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗥𝗢𝗟𝗖𝗥𝗢𝗔 Philippines Incorporated, which he serves as a chair of the scientific board, from the National Museum of the Philippines, from Watch Pilipinas, which he serves as our advisor, and of course from my family, the Jesmos family. I wish to share with you some personal stories, which I will treasure for the rest of my life about NS Alcala. I first met NS Alcala nearly 30 years ago when I was still a graduate student in wildlife studies at the University of the Philippines in Las Bañas. He came to our herpetology class, so this was around 1994, upon the invitation of our professors there. But in my mind, he came because I kept sending him posted letters. This was a time when email or texting or social media weren't around yet. So people were actually communicating to each other, by mail, which is kind of cool, actually, especially for the young people here. You should try that. From then on, he became my external advisor in herpetology, the study of amphibians to reptiles, and later on, he became a mentor. I was welcomed in their home in Fairview, Quezon City, when he read sections of my master's thesis from UPLB. I still vividly recall his first reaction upon reading my first thesis draft. And he said, "By golly, Arvin, your grammar is very terrible." Yeah, that's my impression of NS Alcala. But eventually, I did get better, I think. And we continued those encounters in Quezon City for some time. Mind you, this was when he was still the DNR secretary. And then he transitioned into CHED, the Commission on Higher Education, which is also an indication of how long I was writing my thesis. No? But eventually I finished my master's thesis. We did a few field work together on the island of Luzon, especially on Mount Makiling and Mount Banahaw. We actually climbed up Mount Banahaw, especially on the Lukban side in Quezon province, to study its amphibians and reptiles. This was in 1995 when he was 65 years old. Can you imagine, at 65, he was hiking up the montane forest, and we were at an elevation about 1,500 meters. 65 years old. Our last fieldwork together was in 2012 on Siargao Island, when we were looking at the possibility of introducing a population of the critically endangered Philippine crocodile, Crocodylus mendorensis, through a process called benign introduction. One incident that everyone should hear here is that during that fieldwork in Siargao, he figured into a minor accident while catching a mangrove skink, Emoya atrocostata. Imagine an 82-year-old man having the time of his life, catching lizards, running around. He unfortunately tripped over and he fell flat on his stomach, getting an ugly cut near his right wrist, which actually needed about 10 stitches altogether. So we immediately brought him to the hospital in 𝗓𝒘𝒂, in the town of 𝗓𝒘𝒂, where he had to fall in line again because of, of course, in rural provinces, there are very few doctors. So while in line, the sole doctor there recognized his name. And the doctor immediately said, "Sir, you helped build a school in our place when you were with Chet, and you can jump lines, and we will work on your wound immediately." So that says a lot, how he has helped so many during his lifetime. I once asked him, "What keeps you going, sir? I mean, doing all of the work you're doing for many, many decades." I was expecting an answer that is something scientific, something like, oh, because of the geographical isolation of the Philippines, where the Paleo Islands were isolated, and the speciation and adaptive radiation, continued, and the evolution of micro-endemics and so on and so forth. But what he said was, and this caught me off guard, just 4 words. He said, "I love the Philippines." I love the Philippines. That's what he said. And that says a lot, of course. We were all touched by an angel, and the world is brighter because of him. Salamat kaayo, sir. Maraming salamat po. Your legacy will be felt and will continue on for generations to come. God bless your kind soul. God bless the Alcala family. And thank you very much.
Good morning. Good morning to all. I am Dr. Rene Abesamis, a mentee, a colleague, and a friend of Professor Gary Ross, and also of national scientist Ángel Alcala. Professor Ross offers his deepest condolences and sincere apologies to the Alcala family, especially to Ma'am Naomi, that he cannot be here today due to work commitments in Australia. I will now read Gary's tribute to Dr. Alcala, entitled Ángel C. Alcala, His Scientific Achievements. Angel Alcala was born within sight of pristine tropical seas in Cauayan, Negros Occidental, on March 1, 1929. As a boy, he caught fishes and shrimp with a dip net to help feed the family. He swam regularly at the beach in Barangay Kaliling. When he was 10, he swam on a coral reef close to his home. I remember him describing to me his memories of Philippine tropical seas in the 1930s. He spoke of vibrant, colorful coral reefs teeming with fish and turtles. Little did he know, as a boy, that in his life, he would do more than probably any other Filipino to preserve these coral reefs for fisheries and conservation for future generations of Filipinos. Thus, his calling in life was to study animals. He did a Bachelor of Science in Biology, graduated magna cum laude at Silliman University in 1951, a Master of Arts in Biological Sciences at Stanford University in 1960, and a PhD in Biological Sciences at Stanford University in 1966. The legendary herpetologist Walter Brown supervised Angel's PhD. Angel became the foremost authority on Philippine amphibians and reptiles, an achievement that in itself defined him as a world-renowned scientist. He discovered 50 species of frogs and lizards new to science. He published over 100 scientific papers in herpetology. Angel was the recognized expert on Philippine frogs, lizards, snakes, and crocodiles. In 1973, his career shifted direction substantially. Inspired by programs of community-based management of agricultural resources in the Philippines in the 1950s to the 1970s, Angel decided to try such approaches to manage marine resources, particularly reef fisheries. He arranged the first meeting on community-based management of marine resources in the Philippines at Sumilon Island in December of 1973, almost 50 years ago. The meeting was run in such a way that the fishing community themselves felt that they came up with the ideas of a marine management plan, including a municipal legislation to bring the plan into law. This approach led to a sense of ownership of the management plan by the fishing community, and ownership results in a commitment to succeed. As part of this management plan at Sumilon, Angel was the first biologist to establish an experimental marine protected area, or MPA, in the Philippines, aimed at increasing the fish catch of small-scale fishers. This occurred at a time when reef fisheries resources were declining due to unsustainable fishing practices and increasing human pressures. This marine management approach was applied also at Apo and other Visayan islands and became the template for an extraordinary expansion of MPAs all over the Philippines, numbering more than 1,600 today. The community-based marine resource management templates at Sumilon and Apo also served as the models for the Local Government Code of 1991 and the Fisheries Code in 1998, giving co-management responsibility of marine resources to national and municipal governments. Under these legislations, management of marine resources devolved from a centralized government bureaucracy to municipal governments and local communities. The fishing communities finally had some say in the management of their marine resources. I believe that this was one of Angel's greatest achievements. Angel is now recognized as the father of community-based marine resource management globally. Angel published over 80 papers in marine science. His 1981 paper, arising from the 1973 community-based management meeting at Sumilon, was a watershed paper, one of the first attempts in the world to relate MPAs to local fish catch. He demonstrated that as long as the MPA was protected from fishing, fishers had sustainable fish yields outside of the MPA. His research at Sumilon and Apo showed that no-take MPAs protected and managed by local communities can play a key role in restoring biodiversity and enhancing depleted fisheries. As a measure of its global impact, I note that on February 5, 2023, just 5 days ago, the world's foremost fisheries scientist, Dr. Daniel Pauly, in his keynote address at the International Marine Protected Area Congress in Vancouver, paid tribute to Angel's pioneering research on how MPAs may enhance fishery catches. Of course, to achieve real-world change, one usually has to step out of the ivory tower of academia. After a distinguished scientific career at Silliman University, which included establishing the Silliman University Marine Laboratory in 1974, Angel entered science management in 1989 as the director of the Philippine Council for Aquatic and Marine Research and Development. However, it was in 1992 that his service in government blossomed. Angel told me that while he was on a trip to the USA in 1992, he received a phone call in his hotel room. The caller said, "Sir, the President of the Philippines would like to speak to you." Angel told me at first that he thought someone was playing a joke on him. However, it was no joke. The President of the Philippines, Fidel Ramos, wanted Angel to be the secretary for the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, a position held from 1992 to 1995. As Secretary of the DNR, he had substantial influence on the passing of the Local Government Code and Fisheries Code. Angel would remain in government service from 1995 to 1999, serving as the first chairman of the Commission on Higher Education. Angel Alcala became a national scientist of the Republic of the Philippines in 2014, and this is why we honor him today with the state funeral. On a personal note, I want to express my deepest gratitude to Angel for everything he did for me. He helped define me as a scientist. He was my dear friend and colleague for over 40 years. In particular, I am so grateful to him and to Silliman University for awarding me a Doctor of Science honoris causa in 2018. I told him it was the highlight of my academic career. He was delighted to hear that. One cannot honor the scientist and public servant without also honoring the man. Despite his fame and success, Angel remained a humble, approachable person. He always had time to listen and pass on his wisdom. In addition, he was a loving husband, father, grandfather, and great-grandfather. My condolences to all of Angel's family and his countless friends. Here today, we bid farewell to our dear friend and mentor within sight of tropical seas, not far from the seas of his childhood. These seas are not so pristine now, but because of Angel's life, future generations of Filipinos might glimpse what he saw as a child. Future generations will have fish to eat and have the chance to marvel at coral reefs. Through my tears, I can smile at the privilege and joy of having known 𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗥𝗢𝗟. His extraordinary lifetime achievements in science and public service inspired me, and so many others. And he will continue to inspire countless people in the future. Rest in peace, my dear friend.
Thank you, academician Jesmos, and to Dr. Ross and Dr. Abesamis. We shall continue to remember the life and works of national scientist 𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗥𝗢𝗟 as we hear the message of the Department of Science and Technology Secretary, the Honorable Dr. 𝗦𝗘𝗥𝗢𝗟𝗓𝗓, who is represented today by his Undersecretary, Maridon O. Sahagun.
Good morning, everyone. At the outset, let me express my deepest sympathy to the family of our national scientist, 𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗥𝗢𝗟. And on behalf of the Secretary of the Department of Science and Technology, 𝗦𝗘𝗥𝗢𝗟𝗓 Jr., I have the honor of reading his eulogy for National Scientist 𝗡𝗘𝗥𝗢𝗟. Again, let me express my deepest sympathy to the family of NS Alcala. I share with you my deep condolences and of the science community. As we all know, National Scientist Alcala is an internationally distinguished marine biologist and is recognized for his outstanding contributions to society, specifically his seminal and original research on the systematic ecology and diversity of Philippine amphibians and reptiles, and marine biodiversity, reef fishes, and conservation of marine protected areas. National Scientist Alcala was also known for his tireless effort in promoting Philippine biodiversity. One of his notable contributions was the creation of the first marine protected area to oversee and protect marine biodiversity. Because of this, more than 1,000 protected marine zones were established all over the country. Among these are Apo Island, Sumilon Reef, and Tubataha Reefs. He first made his mark as a young scientist with his monumental work on the frogs in Negros Island. His comprehensive analysis and descriptions of the life histories of 11 Philippine frogs, which was published in 1962 by internationally respected and widely cited quarterly journal of etiology and herpetology, 𝗂𝒘𝒢𝒄, filled the gap in the scanty and fragmented information on Philippine native anurans. He also set up the first artificial reef in the country, located here in Dumaguete in 1977, when he was appointed by former President Fidel V. Ramos as Secretary of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, where he served with probity, integrity, and transparency. Furthermore, he initiated DNR's programs on marine conservation. Aside from being appointed as DNR Secretary, he was also designated to be the first chairman of the Commission on Higher Education from 1995 to 1999, where he promoted and encouraged research programs in colleges and universities. He also became the president of the Silliman University in 1991 to 1992 and founded the Silliman Marine Laboratory, which has been active in research on marine protected areas, fisheries and marine biodiversity, mariculture and conservation of Philippine plants and animal species. With more than 30 years of experience as a biologist, National Scientist Alcala made a lot of contributions to the Philippines. The conservation programs in our country are now secured, and 50 more species of reptiles and amphibians were identified. Among the many awards that National Scientist 𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗥𝗢𝗟 received were the following: Outstanding Biologist for Region 7, given by the National Science and Technology Authority in 1985. The Outstanding Oriental 𝗔𝒟𝒄𝒂𝒍 Award in Science and Technology, given by the Province of Negros Oriental in 1991. The Ramon Magsaysay Award for Public Service, given by the Ramon Magsaysay Award Foundation in 1992. The Outstanding Dumagueteño in Science and Technology, given by the Dumaguete City Government in 1998. And one of the 50 Outstanding Men and Women in Science, Research and Development category, given by the Department of Science and Technology in 2008. In 2004, he was elected to the National Academy of Science and Technology, Philippines, and was conferred the Order of National Scientist on June 6, 2014, by virtue of Malacanang Proclamation number 783, signed by the then President Benigno Aquino III. Let us not take his passing as a great loss to the scientific community. He may be gone, but his legacy will remain forever. We salute National Scientist 𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗥𝗢𝗟 for a job very well done. Thank you very much for all the lessons, for all the laughter, for all the stories, for a well-lived life. May eternal light shine on you. You will be missed, but it will always be remembered.
Thank you, Undersecretary Sahagun. May we now hear another song from the Silliman University Church Covenant Choir. Thank you very much, Silliman University Church Covenant Choir, for those beautiful songs. The President of the Republic of the Philippines, Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., his message to be read by Undersecretary Maridon O. Sahagun to the family of National Scientist 𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗥𝗢𝗟𝗓𝗖𝗏.
Again, good morning. The President, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., sends his deep regrets for not being able to join us today, as he is currently on a state visit in Japan. However, he prepared a eulogy that he wants to convey to everyone, especially to the bereaved family, for which I will have the honor of reading. To the family of National Scientist Dr. 𝗡𝗘𝗥𝗢𝗟𝗖𝗥𝗢𝗟, friends, colleagues, and guests, we gather here today both in grief and gratitude. Yes, we mourn the loss of one of our nation's brightest minds in the field of science, but we also celebrate the life of a great man whom we had the great fortune of sharing time with in this brief life of ours. Dr. Alcala will be remembered as a great Filipino scientist, an ardent researcher, a passionate educator, and an effective leader. Because of his extensive research on various fields, specifically on marine biology, his works have been recognized locally and internationally. His major contribution to our country's marine development and ecology paved the way for younger generations to have greater awareness of protective environmental practices, marine conservation, and the discovery of new species. Thanks to his efforts, more Filipinos developed a heightened consciousness of sea protection. This consciousness rippled, not only creating a movement for the environment, but also generating livelihood and tourism opportunities for the communities along our coastal areas, effects that we see and feel today. He likewise campaigned for responsible environmental stewardship and advocacies that made him a renowned hero of our country's natural resources. Fueled by his passion, he went beyond what is expected of him in the field of research. The combination of his love and expertise in both science and the academe led him to heed the call of public service. After serving as professor and president of the Silliman University, he was appointed as the secretary of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources from 1992 to 1995. He continued his civic duty under the administration of President Fidel V. Ramos in 1995, where he was entrusted to lead the Commission on Higher Education as the first full-term chairperson of 𝗡𝗘. Chairperson Alcala was also known as an institution builder. It was during his term that the mandates and vision on higher Philippine education emphasized the importance of quality, efficiency, relevance, and access to all. He also left a remarkable legacy in the Commission that is still being adopted today, and that is the establishment of the Centers of Excellence and the Centers of Development. This encouraged Philippine universities and colleges to continuously demonstrate excellent performance in various educational areas. Under his leadership, there was an expansion of scholarship grants for both the faculty and students. His successors in the Commission gave him high regards and praises for institutionalizing best practices that became tools in improving the standard of our education system. Indeed, even though he lived a full and meaningful life by reaching the advanced age of 93, many of us still look with awe and wonder at how he managed to achieve so much in such a relatively short span of time. Perhaps we can surmise that it is his love for our country and this earth that we all call home that both drove and nourished him throughout his life. As we look back and reflect on his accomplishments and contributions, I am certain that even amidst his passing, his legacy will continue to live on and inspire the rest of our people. Let it also serve as an encouragement for us to keep on finding sustainable solutions to the pressing environment and social challenges we face. Truly, every one of us here holds a special memory of him. As we grieve his loss, let us find comfort in knowing that he is now resting in the hands of our Lord and surrounded by his fellow angels. On behalf of the Filipino people, I thank you, Dr. Angel C. Alcala, for the honor and pride you gave to our country. Yours was definitely a life well lived. Thank you very much. Again, these are the words of the President, and on his behalf, I express his deepest condolences to the bereaved family and to all those whose lives he has touched during his lifetime. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, President Marcos, for that message to the Alcala family. And of course, to Undersecretary Sahagun. We may now hear a response from the Alcala family, from his son, Mr. Moses L. Alcala.
Thank you, Mr. President, and the NAST, and the national government. On behalf of our family, I thank all of you here. I thank Silliman University, the numerous provincial and LGUs, and the numerous agencies, NGOs, institutions, individuals, relatives, friends, and those who are not able to come, but whose hearts and spirits are with us today. Our family profoundly and humbly thanks all of you for sharing your time and mourning with us, for your comforting words and the overwhelmingly beautiful tributes this past week, many personal stories of which were quite surprising and moving. And thanks again to Silliman Church, this beautiful choir, and their beautiful music. My father had his share of near deaths, in case you didn't know, the details of which I don't have the time to explain today. But he was a field man and a government man, and every day was a risk for him, especially when he was in the DENR. But he had many tasks to accomplish, and God made sure that he was always safe. However, God is now taking him back, for Papa's work on earth is done, completed with flying colors. We grieve his departure, but celebrate his life. Let us keep him in memory forever. Farewell, Papa. You had a great run, one that I and many others can never match. I suspect you will find something new to discover up there in heaven. Perhaps you will try to improve the environment where the angels live. We love you and will terribly miss you. Till we meet again.
Thank you, Mr. Moses Alcala. On behalf of everyone here in person and for the thousands on the virtual celebrating the life of national scientist Angel Alcala, our deepest condolences to the family of national scientist Angel Alcala. Thank you for allowing us to pay honor and respect to our dear national scientist, Alcala. Maraming salamat po. Within the long and meaningful time that we were able to be with one of the pillars in the field of science and technology in this country, no doubt that he has given an excellent service beyond what is expected of him. If we find ourselves grieving for his loss, let us remind ourselves that we must be delighted and grateful because we were blessed to have witnessed and be a part of the life of an excellent and outstanding national scientist, Dr. Angel C. Alcala. Dr. Alcala, the knowledge you have imparted us shall be cherished and passed on to the future generation. We will forever be thankful for you have guided and helped our countrymen improve their lives through your works and for guiding our young students and researchers who dream of following your footsteps. On my own personal note, I think my duty has been accomplished from National Scientist Alcala. Isa ako sa isang probinsyano rin, no? Like, because I come from Leyte and Tacloban City. And he has always invited me to come to Negros Oriental and Silliman University, but never had a chance. And I have accomplished that by coming here today, and I hope that he is happy with that. But to you, sir, I will not be afraid to listen with your whispers, as he has also been guiding me on how to work with our people on the countryside. Thank you so much, sir. Rest in peace. This service is ended. We will now proceed to the interment at the Gardens Memorial Cemetery. But before we do that, may we request the family of the Alcala to come in front for a photo op with the late national scientist Alcala. May we request everyone who are here to please remain where you are while the remains of national scientist Alcala will be taken to the funeral car. This will be followed by the immediate family and officials of NAST Philippines and the rest to follow. And the recessional will be led by the Silliman University Band.
We would like to announce that buses are provided for all the Silliman community members and Dumaguete City community members. The same bus will bring you back to the city. Thank you.
We may now proceed to take the body of National Scientist Alcala to the funeral car. And the family, the Alcala family, to follow immediately. Thank you.